Hey guys, the reason we're looking at my two little Gundam buddies here is because I recently took a trip to Gundam Planet, and if you saw the video, you saw what a really cool place that was. Well, I picked up a couple of things there, so I just figured I'd show you guys what my stash ad is from Gundam Planet. And what I was thinking of that and bringing these out to show you guys, I started thinking back to some of my older stuff in the stash and got some really cool vintage kits. If you're a fan of Japanese anime, you're gonna love this, so you're gonna want to watch. So just hang out. We're gonna go through some really cool stuff. All right, first thing I want to show you guys is the VF-1S Strike Batroid Valkyrie. This is one of the kits that I just got from Gundam Planet, and it is really super cool. This is a 1/72nd scale Batroid, and it's gonna be big when it's built. If you're a fan of Macross or Robotech, then you're gonna recognize this guy right away as Roy Folker's Batroid. Now, this one is not a transforming Batroid. This is basically the Strike Batroid with all of its armor and heavy weapons installed, and builds up into a really cool version of the mech itself. You can see here, look at the guns that it brings, the cannons, the flight pods in the back, missile launchers on its arms. It is really an amazing kit. This is from Hasegawa, which had an incredible run of Macross kits. This one is dated from 1984 Big West, but this kit is not from 1984. This is a more recent issue. We're gonna have to possibly look this up and do a little investigation to find out exactly when this was made, as I don't see a date here and I can't read Japanese. But that doesn't change the fact this is very cool. Large 1/72nd scale Batroid Valkyrie. So not only did they have that, but they also had, also from Hasegawa, the Gerwalk mode of the Valkyrie, which, again, very cool in its full Gerwalk transformation mode. trying to remember what it was called. They were called Veritech Fighters in Robotech. And I don't think they actually had a specific name for each individual mode. Although I do remember there were buttons when you would change modes on the control panel that they showed in the show, where you'd pull a G for the Gerwalk mode, B and B for the Battloid mode. I think, if I remember that right. If I do, then yay for me. If not, then probably not remembering right. But this is a very cool kit, and that's some amazing box art right there. Really, some amazing box art on both. I mean, that's kind of what got me. When I saw that box art, I'm like, wow, I have to pick these up. Because these are super, super cool. This one is also 1/72nd scale, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And it's in a series of... This one would be the Battloid is number 14. This one is number 25. So I'm sure there are quite a few more in this series from Hasegawa. So now we have two Valkyries. And then to top it off, as soon as I saw this guy, I had to jump on it. Again, another huge box. I have to put it on here sideways because it's just too big to show. The Destroid Defender. Also, again, in 1/72nd scale. Also from Hasegawa. This one is a more recent release for... Well, maybe not. Maybe about the same vintage as those. I don't think any of these kits were originally from the 80s. I think they were later releases based off of the Macross series. Here you can see this kit has tons and tons of detail, and it's going to be really fun to weather and build up. So these are the three that I picked up from Gundam Planet. So you can tell they don't just have Gundams. They have all sorts of anime stuff. It's freaking fantastic in there. But when I got these three, it started me thinking, wow, let me take a look through the rest of my anime collection and see how much Macross stuff I've actually got. And I started going through, and then I found one that I picked up recently, which I had completely forgotten that I had gotten, which is the Regalt Standard Type Battle Pod. Now, this is also from Hasegawa and Big West. This isn't labeled half the Big West also, I think. I'm not sure. Wave Corporation. They seem to be partnered up with the Gerwalk. Is all Hasegawa. The two Valkyries seem to be all Hasegawa, while this one is by Wave, and this one is involving Big West. This is a much more recent kit, as this is for the Macross 40th anniversary that it was released. Again, if you guys watched Robotech, you remember exactly what these battle pods were all about. It's a very, very cool kit. Looking forward to building that one. Also 1/72nd scale. So all of these kits are basically will scale with each other very well. I don't know. I cannot fit them all on in the same thing here. Right. Let's see. Just to give you an idea of all the size of the different boxes. There we go. Yeah, sorry guys, but we have a little bit of limited room here. There we go. Let's take a look there. They all scale at 1/72nd scale, so they'll all fit beautifully together. Now, let's take a look at another of my recent buys. Now, these are all Bandai's coming up here. that are coming up next. Bandai also re-released for Macross 40th anniversary. What we have here is a smaller scale version of the Destroyed Defender. As Hasegawa released a 1/72nd scale, Bandai released a, well, according to this, it's also 1/72nd scale. But this box is quite a bit smaller. We're going to have to do a comparison of these two because I don't think the Bandai is 1/72nd. But as you can see here, you got your standard Bandai box. Here's some good pictures of the Battloid built up. And here's some pictures of the anime Battloid, which is some really great artwork here. Again, really nice box art. I don't think the box art is quite on par with the Hasegawa box art, as this is your standard Bandai white box with the subject in the middle and the writing around it. Now, while the Hasegawa is basically, I mean, that's a work of art right there. Look at that painting. So that's Bandai's first entry of mine into the Macross world. Now, the next entry is another 40th anniversary kit from Bandai of the Destroyed Spartan. This is again another one of the really cool Destroids. I mean, I will admit that my personal favorite is always going to be the Destroyed Defender, but the Spartan is also very cool. You can see here, take a look at all of the armaments, the missile pods. Very cool the way this is going to build up. Again, it's going to be very fun to weather, and we can take a look at it in its enemy configuration here. So that is very cool. Again, if you're a fan of Macross, these are amazing, and if you're a fan of Robotech, you'll recognize all of these. Again, fantastic model kits. Now, my last Bandai here is going to be the Destroyed Monster. Of all the mechs in Robotech, after the Valkyries, the Destroyed Monster is my favorite. As much as I like the Defender, this big, hulking, walking monster with the 4 cannons and the arms that serve as missile launchers is one of the coolest designs I have ever seen. Look at that thing when it's done. That is an awesome, awesome machine. So here we have all of our modern generation of Macross kits, or all the modern generation of Macross kits that I personally own. I'm sure there are quite a few more out there. As a matter of fact, I know there are because Gundam Planet has a few that I didn't pick up, which I may be going back for. Now, Macross is making a resurgence now that they've ironed out all of their legal issues with Harmony Gold. And they're going to be making a return to the United States again with all sorts of new Macross releases. Apart from what is coming directly from Japan, it's going to be a bunch of new stuff originating here. So these are just a few of the current crop of kits. I gotta say that these have all been released within the last 10 years or so. So I will have to definitely look up and see when these were made. But check this out. This is going to be really cool right here. And BG, from BG's Model Workshop, dude, hold on to your hat for this one. I know you're a huge Robotech fan, and you're going to love what's coming next. So this is inspired by you, buddy. I went through my stash and I found a bunch of my vintage kits. I'm talking, these are straight from the early 80s. I collected these when I was a kid and never put them together, and now they're a little... Don't know if I'm going to build them because they're definitely really cool to have in the collection. Now, the first one we're going to show here is from Imai. And how cool is this? The ride armor. This is a motorcycle that transforms into armor for the pilot to wear. Okay, this is an incredibly cool idea. You can see the rider on the motorcycle there. And that's him in his armored form. So you can take a look at him there getting ready for battle. There's a little cutaway view of the armor. And there's a view of the finished model. This is one of my favorites of my collection. So that is awesome right there. Now, we'll recognize that if you're a Robotech fan, of which I am. I'm also a Macross fan, but Robotech is also one of my all-time favorite animes. When I was a kid growing up watching it, I would rush home just to catch all the latest episodes. After Star Blazers, or as it was known here, Star Blazers, actually Yamato, Space Battleship Yamato, Robotech was my next favorite anime series. I mean, it was an amazing series. If you guys haven't seen it, you really should. And these kits are really cool. I mean, now they are 1980s kits, so, you know, they are what they are technology-wise from the way they were made and how they go together, but they are still very, very cool. Now, the next one we have here is a VF1D Gerwalk Valkyrie. An original Imai kit from the early 80s. This you will recognize from Robotech as Rick Hunter's Battloid, or the first Battloid that Rick Hunter ends up in after the war breaks out on Macross Island. And he kind of causes more damage than the enemy did as he's learning to fly this thing. And you can see here that there were quite a few different ones in the series. Now these are all complete kits that I've had in storage since I got them in the 80s. Still bagged up. I don't know if the decals are going to be any good. This one's not completely bagged up. I obviously went in there and took a peek to see what was going on in there. And look at this. They were bagged up with a tube of cement straight from Japan. Don't know if this is probably not any good anymore. I mean, it might be. I mean, it is totally sealed in a metal container. Might still be good. Don't know. I wouldn't think of using it, though. But here we have the kit as it was originally packaged. Which is really cool. We're going to have some unboxings to do on some of these things so we can really just delve into what they are all about. So that's Rick Hunter's Valkyrie as we know him. Now, the next one we're going to look at is this really cool kit. Now, this is not from Imai. So far, the kits have all been from Imai. This one is from Ari, which, if you're familiar with them, they were big into the sci-fi and anime models back in the 80s. I don't even know if they are still around. I really have no idea. I don't know if Imai is still around either. But this is a Ari kit. Gotta admit, the box art is not my favorite, but it was an armored Battloid, which is not really my favorite view of the thing. I think it just looks a little too big and too clunky. So I'm not really a fan of... Let me see if we can get you a clearer look at this. I'm not really a fan at the look of this one. But I did buy it years ago because I thought it was really cool. So let's put him to the side. We're running out of table up here on the room on the table here. Let's just move some of these things back a little bit so we can keep showing you guys how much really cool Macross stuff there is out there. All right, made a little more room. Now we're going to show you the big bad boy himself, the actual Macross SDF-1. Take a look at that. BG, I know you're very familiar with this ship. This is another RE kit of the Macross ship. Here you can see all the details on the side of the box here. Anime version of the ship, which when you paint it realistically, you have the grays and the very muted colors. But if you want it to look like the anime, you got to go a little more brighter. Well, you have to go a little brighter just to bring the colors out a little bit. But this is a very cool kit. Storm Attacker Construction is what they called it in Japan, while we just called it the Macross SDF-1. Now, let's keep going on this trip down memory lane as we're moving further and further into the past. Here we have from Imai a VF-1D Batroid Valkyrie. Now, this is the Batroid version of this guy, similar to what we saw earlier in the newer kits, but this is the VF-1D, which is Rick Hunter's Batroid. But the same as the other kit we saw earlier, this is in its Batroid configuration. Here you can see the anime art. And here you can see the entire range of Batroids that were released in model kit form. So much like the Hasegawa kits, they released them in Batroid and Jurwark form, which is really, really cool. And this is what scale are these? It's going to be really interesting to make scale comparisons on these. This is also states that these are all 1/72nd scale. But if we take a look at, here we have the box for the 1/72nd scale Hasegawa Valkyrie, and the box for the 1/72nd scale Imai Valkyrie, which is much smaller. So it's going to be interesting to do a comparison of these two kits, where we'll see how things have changed from the 80s up until just recently, once we find out when these kits were all made. The same with the Battloid. Let's move this over here, where we'll have the Hasegawa version next to the the Imai version. Now you can see the difference in the thickness of the boxes. And if you could see it, the height of the boxes, as that's the height difference. So I do know that this one has a lot more armor and weapons. So that might be the reason for the difference is that this one just has more stuff in it. Either way, we'll find out at some point. Okay, now we're going to keep going with this trip down memory lane. Here we have a more recent kit. This one is from Ari. I am not sure when this one was made. This is the Max Special, if you remember Max Sterling. Now this one is also armored up like the VF-1S Strike Valkyrie that we just looked at, where it's got the guns, it's got the armored packs on the back. And this box, you can see it's got tons of images of the other kits available in this line of armored kits. And if you're a Macross fan, then you'll remember Max and the superstar pilot that he was. Now, one thing really interesting about some of these kits is that the RE kits, and I think the MIs also, showed you the breakdown of the trees, and they were painted, which is really interesting, as the color callouts are done right on the trees themselves. And let's take a look at some of these, and it gives you the different versions that you can paint it. You can do Max, or you can do, this must be, I think this is one of their non-character specific Valkyries. And there we go, still packed up. Now this one came with stickers as opposed to decals. Water slide decals, these are stickers. Everything's all still in the original. Wrappers hasn't been opened for quite a while now. We are definitely going to have to find out when these were from. So there's Max. Okay, now we're going to have to make some room for this next guy. So we're going to move some more stuff back here. Let's just move some stuff over here because this next guy is coming up. It's a really interesting one. So we're going to just move stuff around. Now, I showed you the newer Destroyed Monster from Bandai, which is a more recent kit. And this is a 1/200th scale. So you think that that's pretty cool? That's a nice big kit. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Boom! Look at the size of this guy. This is from RE, the Destroyed Monster that they put out in a 1/160th scale. This thing is huge compared to the Bandai. Now, while the Bandai is nicely detailed, as you can see, it's even got the opening rear access hatch. The RE, let's take a look at what it's got here. With the size of the cannons, this thing is going to be huge. Also has the opening rear access hatches. So this is actually one of my prized vintage model kits. I've never built this thing because I don't know, I just really like having a vintage kit. And I really wanted to build it. And now I'll get my chance because I'm going to build the Bandai. And keep this little puppy here just for posterity. You can see here all of the trees laid out. Not the most complicated kit, but it's gonna be, it's really, really cool. There we go, with everything still there. All of the decals are there. Everything's still originally written up. And this is a, not sure what that is. It's like a paint call out sheet. And here are all the rest of the parts, the guns, everything. This is super cool. And it's been sitting in storage since the 80s. And wow, I'm just blown away by the size difference. Now, I will be building the Bandai version on the channel. The RE version, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about whether I want a chance building that one or not. Now, the last one I have to show you is from a slightly different chapter of the Robotech story. If you guys remember, there were 3 chapters The Macross saga was the first part. Then there was the next Robotech, the new generation, I think it was called. No, then there was Robotech. There was a second chapter, which was called, I can't really recall the name of the second chapter. And then there was a new generation, which involved the right armor. Well, just to complete all three chapters, here we have one of the soldiers from chapter 2 of the Robotech saga. Let me see if I can give you guys a better look at that. Advanced A Tactics Armored Corps, which I'm going to assume that A stands for Advanced Tactics Armored Corps. One of the soldiers of the Southern Cross, which was the army that defended Earth during the second chapter of the Robotech saga. And here you can see that they had an entire series of them, all different branches, I guess, of the service, as one of them seems aquatic, one seems like some sort of a desert fighter, the other one looks like it's in space. So I guess they had different branches of their military that they represented in these model kits. So yeah, guys, these are all of my Macross / Robotech kits, and a few of them vintage from the 1980s. Which I'm really glad that they have released more of these kits, because now it gives me an opportunity to build some of the newer ones, which no doubt will be better made due to the newer technology that we have here, that we have available to us today for model making, which will make the builds much more enjoyable, although probably a little less challenging than building one of the older ones. As a matter of fact, speaking of building one of the older ones, hold on just a second, guys. This is how I knew BG was a real Robotech fan, because he recognized this little guy right off the bat. This is the Battloid that's piloted by the guy who rides in this. As this was their version of the Battloid, or similar to a Valkyrie, which is why when they put these three different series together to make the Robotech saga, it just kind of worked visually because they had very similar design cues. The Valkyries and the Alpha Fighters, as this is known, or the Armor Soldier, as it's known in Japan, had very similar styling cues, transformation sequences. They even had a Jerwalk mode, fighter plane mode, and Battlewood mode, as you see here. So they were very similar and kind of brought visually the styles together to create the one Robotech saga, so that it seemed plausible that each series led from one to the other, except for the one in the middle. That one was just a little weird, but design-wise. But it did have fighters with Jerwalk modes, Battloid modes, so. But it's like the least favorite of the three chapters. So there we go, guys. That's our look back in time at one of the best anime series ever, or at least for me, because Robotech and Macross, it just happens to be up there in the top 5 of my favorite anime series. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Maybe we'll turn this into a bit of a series and we'll look back on some of the other stuff that I've got lying around here somewhere. But until then, remember, like, thumbs up, subscribe. Just join in on the fun. I mean, we're going to be looking at cool stuff like this all the time. Maybe this could be part of my Collector's Corner series. Well, I guess I could fit in both. But we're going to be building some of this stuff, and you're going to want to stick around for that. So, all right, guys, I'll see you on the next one.
I told you you'd get a kick out of this.